Welcome to the Tuesday NBA slate breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hyden. Taking a look at this six-game slate tonight. Pretty solid slate on a Tuesday. A couple of really high totals. We're going to probably jump into one here first. It's going to be another popular one.
Yeah, it really is, and it definitely should be. It's a really great six-game slate. I actually really like it looking at the roster construction, the way things are going to go. I think you have a couple crucial decisions you have to make, but I really do like this slate.
Yeah, let's jump into it. Orlando broke on that first one here. The pace in this game is obviously going to be phenomenal, as it was, just the other day when these two play. We already kind of got a little blueprint of what's to come. The only difference, obviously, is Elfrid Payton being out. Aaron Gordon's going to be back, but that doesn't change actually a whole lot in comparison to where we're looking.
No, not really. We saw Orlando come out against Cleveland whenever Elfrid was out and Gordon were out, and the ball was really, really, really moving for him. So I'm excited to see this game. I actually think it could maybe outscore what it was last time. It was 126, 121 in the last game. So I think it may come close to outscoring that tonight.
Yeah, it very well could. As far as guys from this game, we'll start with the Orlando side. Vucevic birthday game. I mean, I think we got to lead off there. Expensive on FanDuel, I think, as he really should be. DraftKings, I mean, I think he's a guy that I'm going to be trying to kind of get in there just because he's a little bit cheaper than some of the other bigger names who have quite a bit of upside.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of upside in this matchup. We've obviously seen it. He had a huge game against them just a few days ago. Put up 63 fantasy points, had 41 real points. He's shooting really well. He's 7 of 14 from three. You're throwing the birthday narrative if you want to play him just because of that, but he's just a fantastic play regardless.
Yeah, I mean, birthday aside, I mean, this is a spot where you can really look. Brooklyn's been a little bit better on the rebounding this year. Pretty average, though, I think, when everything kind of comes about this year. But a good spot for him. Aaron Gordon, a little bit expensive for my taste, I think. I don't mind him on DK. I don't think I'm going to be going there on FanDuel. I just think that's a little bit pricey at 8K. I don't mind him, I guess, in GPPs because I think maybe people will feel the same way.
I have interest in him on both sides and GPPs. I don't know if I want to go there in cash games. 8,000 on FanDuel. I don't know what FanDuel is doing with their pricing. That's just absolutely insane. But you could make a case for him there. This again is an upside spot for Gordon. I want to see how him being back will affect the offense. Even though Elfrid's still not there, you could see some usage come out of a couple of these guys' hands. But I like Gordon. Fournier is a guy that I have a lot of interest in. 24% usage rate in that first game with Elfrid and with Gordon. Actually went down without those two on the court, which is interesting to see. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that. But I like Fournier here. DJ Augustine's in a fine spot. He's priced up on both sides after he had a decent game. And one guy that I don't think a lot of people are going to talk about, or if they are, they're going to talk about him for the wrong reasons, is Jonathan Simmons. It's an excellent spot for him. He's looked really good in their first few games. The reason why, the thing that I don't think people are going to talk about enough is the fact that whenever Augustine is off the floor, Jonathan Simmons is the primary ball handler. He had a 29.7% usage rate last game without Elfrid Payton and without Augustine on the floor. I really, really, really like him in the spot.
How many minutes do you know if you have it available off the top of your head? Was that with Augustine off?
Let's see. We're looking at Simmons played 20 minutes total in that game. Augustine played 27 minutes. So pretty much the entire time Augustine was off the floor, Simmons was on the floor.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good spot for him, obviously, in this game. When I look at his price, I mean, I think he's actually a really interesting pivot because, Terrence Ross is really close in pricing and stuff like that. And, people are going to go to Terrence Ross. I'll have some shares. He's a little bit iffy for me tonight because you obviously can't trust him, but he's cheap. Fournier, I like Fournier tonight. The 7K price tag, I think, on FanDuel might be a little bit too much for me. Just in comparison to some of these other guys. But I guess when you kind of look at shooting guards there, maybe I'm not really going lower because, I mean, you have Crab at 48, but Justin Holiday, we were joking around about 6,400, Jaylen Brown 61. So I guess I don't hate it. It's just I'm not used to seeing his price be where it's at.
I think we're going to have a lot of that on FanDuel, unfortunately, with their pricing. You're going to look at a lot of these guys and be like, I don't want to pay this price for him. And then you look at everyone else and be like, well, I guess I have to pay this price for him because everyone is overpriced pretty much on FanDuel.
Yeah, it seems that way. I like Augustine a little bit. I mean, not as much as I did the other night when he was really cheap, but I think he's in play, like you said. On the Brooklyn side of things, another spot where we get kind of a lot of these wingers that are in play. DeMarre Carroll, I think, stands out as my favorite. I know you wrote him up in your GPP article as well. I like the price. I like his role in the offense right now, and he's kind of producing across the board.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wrote him up. I think he's not a popular name. People are going to kind of gravitate towards Karis LeVert and a couple of these other guys. Carroll absolutely has looked outstanding to start the season. Doesn't seem to be affected by the ailments that he was bothered by last year in Toronto. He's played 28 minutes in all 3 games this season, so his minutes seem to be pretty locked in. 12 shot attempts, 9 shot attempts, and 7 shot attempts in those games. Hitting a couple shots from 3, getting those peripherals, the blocks and steals. And Orlando, not a great rebounding team, so he's going to be able to crash the glass and get some rebounds. We saw him grab 8 against Orlando last game. I really like him in the spot at 5K on DraftKings. We saw him hit 35 fantasy points last time out against Orlando. He could probably do that again here.
Yeah. We kind of look at some of the other wingers, like LeVert, like Crabbe. Guys I don't mind either. They're all bunched, actually really together on DK. LeVert's 5K, Carroll 5K, Crabbe 4.9. I think when you look at things, I think Carroll probably stands out as my favorite of the 3, but I really don't mind any of them.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind going back to the well with Karis LeVert. He should probably get the start again. So that's a spot where he actually thrived in the starting lineup last game. And Crabbe came off the bench, and he looked pretty good coming off the bench. We used him against Orlando, where he actually started and didn't look very good. Coming off the bench, I would expect him to actually have a better game. So I do like Crabbe. And, of course, you could go with D'Angelo Russell here. It's a great spot going up against Orlando. And if you really need to go cheap, Spencer Dinwiddie would see probably about 20 minutes. And we saw him produce 16 points with 5 assists and 5 rebounds against Orlando last time out.
Yeah. As far as the front court goes, I don't have as much interest in Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. I do like Trevor Booker again. Price is coming up a little bit, but I'm okay with it. His role in the offense is basically go out there and produce offensively. Double-digit shot attempts in all 3 games this year. Rebounds have been there. He's a solid rebounder. So I don't mind Booker, even at kind of a heightened price tag.
Yeah, Booker's the guy for me. We've seen what he can do when he comes off the bench. He's just a double-double machine coming off the bench. I am a little concerned with Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. We saw him only play 19 minutes against Atlanta. Some of that was foul-related. And I'm pretty sure, I would have to double-check this, but I'm almost 100% certain the first 3 games this season, every single game he's gone to the locker room in the first quarter or the first half. He's been injury-prone in his career. That's a little concerning if he keeps on taking all these trips to the locker room. Either he's banged up a little bit, or he has to use the restroom or something. I don't know what it is, but I guess if you're looking in GPPs, you could go there. He has a tough matchup. If you look at him probably going up against Aaron Gordon, this could be a spot for him to get in foul trouble again.
Yeah, I think so. And unless he needs those blocks and steals to kind of really produce a higher ceiling, because we've seen it when they're missing. It's not really a pretty score come the end of the night. I don't mind him in GPPs because he's going to be lower owned. FanDuel, I have a tough time paying 6,200 for him because there are actually guys I'd rather play around him. So I think he's more of a DK play for me.
Yeah, that's the route I would take there.
So anyone else from these games?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Bulls Cleveland. Not yeah,
skip.
I mean, I know there's one guy that we do want to talk about is Lauren Markkinen. 6,300 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DK. You could argue the upside, whatever, but I think for these prices, he's just a really nice play actually in all formats because, he's going to play, 33, 34 plus minutes, a decent rebounder. I like the fact that Tristan Thompson being off, not that Tristan Thompson is going to chase him around anyway, but Cleveland's a little bit weaker, I think, with Love at the center position.
Yeah, they really are, and something to keep an eye on. Tristan Thompson, I believe, is questionable for this game, so that could play a role here. It's really tough to consider anyone from this game, given that Cleveland right now is the spread on this game is 15.5 points. Cleveland should just come out and just obliterate the Bulls. They just don't have any talent. But if you're looking at the Chicago side of things, you mentioned Lauri Markkanen. It's been outstanding in their first few games, averaging 15 points, 10 rebounds. So he's averaging a double-double, which is nice if you're looking at DraftKings. He's looked impressive. He's getting to his spots, doesn't rush, excellent footwork. If Greg Popovich compliments a player on his footwork, he's doing really good. So I like him a little bit in this spot. I don't think people are going to go there just because of the blowout potential. Not really interested in Jarian Grant on FanDuel. He's priced at like 6,400, which makes no sense at all. Makes a little more sense on DraftKings, and then you also have to consider they do have Kay Felder there now, who's looked decent in his limited minutes. He's played 16 and 15 in the last 2 games. It is a revenge game for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at Chicago, I mean, it kind of there's probably going to be 2 names, and then like we throw one out as a dart throw every night because this is just how this team is right now. But
yeah,
the blowout concern, I mean, I think that's obviously a little bit more worrisome on the Cleveland side with using their guys. You look at LeBron, I probably can't pay his price tag tonight. He's been kind of trending downwards a little bit as well, just in terms of like peripheral production. I don't know if he's just not really engaged with some of those matchups that he had. He's taking things easy with the back. I don't know what it is, but I can't pay his price, I think, on tonight's slate.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Justin Holiday. He's a guy you could take a shot on from Chicago. I mean, he's going to jack up like 16, 20 shots in this game. So you could go there. But on the LeBron thing, like the way I'm looking at it is he's 10K on DraftKings. If Cleveland is going to blow Chicago out of the water, there's 2 guys that you're going to get that production from, and it's going to be LeBron and Kevin Love. Like J.R. Smith is questionable for this game. Dwayne Wade's going to be coming off the bench. Jose Calderon is starting. Jay Crowder, like these guys aren't offensive weapons. So if they're going to blow them out, you have to imagine that LeBron is the one that's doing the majority of the heavy lifting, and people are going to overlook him because of the blowout concerns. So I actually don't mind going there. Tonight. It is a home game. They just got embarrassed by the Magic, the shorthanded Magic. LeBron's had a couple days off to rest. I would consider going there in GPPs, and he probably could get you 50, 55 fantasy points, which at 10K, I'll take that.
You're looking elsewhere for cash.
Yeah.
I think on one guy that I just kind of been a little bit intrigued was Iman Shumpert in this one. J.R. Smith questionable, obviously no Derrick Rose. They could be actually really limited with guards. And I think Shumpert can obviously, he can play point guard, he can play shooting guard, he can play small forward when LeBron's off. And 30 minutes, obviously, the last game, I think some of that was obviously due to the blowout, which, we can contribute to here as well. So 3,700 on DK, like I don't hate the play if he comes in and mops up 25 plus minutes.
No, that's actually a good call, especially going against Chicago, who just can't do anything right. I believe they're going to start CD Osman if J.R. Smith is out. Osman's only played he's played a combined 9 minutes over 2 games. He only played 8 minutes in that blowout. So it would be Shumpert that benefits the most. And he would most likely, he would be the guy that does a lot of the ball handling for this team with that second or third unit that in the blowout. So yeah, that's definitely a way you could go, and hope he has a huge game.
Any interesting guys like Crowder or Love tonight?
Not really. I guess you could make a case for Love. What is his price? He's 7,400 on DraftKings, probably like 12K on FanDuel based off their pricing. He's 8,300 on FanDuel. He's center eligible on FanDuel, which kind of bothers me, even though he is a center. Like I don't want to use a center spot on him, but I don't hate that move in GPPs and hope that he carries this team to the blowout.
Yeah, he was just like 6,900 the other day.
Yeah.
So let's move on here. Head on to the next game. We'll take a look at Boston and New York. Smallish blowout concerns. I don't think it's too bad. I mean, Boston about 9-point favorites right now. Good spot for Boston at home against the Knicks team that's obviously bad. But I think this game is fairly usable. I think we had the biggest gripe with some of the pricing for some of the Boston value guys. Marcus Smart likely out again tonight. I'm still fine with using Terry Rozier, just given the fact that he's shooting guard eligible at his price tag, going to probably play around 30 minutes. He's the value guy because Brown and Tatum obviously not value prices anymore.
Yeah, Rozier's the guy that I'm getting some exposure to if I'm looking at I guess quote unquote value, even though what is he's 5,500 on DraftKings. I think he's the same price on FanDuel. I do like him as a pivot from like the Karis LeVert and some of the other chalkier plays in that price range. He's going to play a lot of minutes. The Knicks stink. So it's definitely a good spot for him. I'm mostly targeting Kyrie from the Boston side of things. I think this is a great bounce back spot. He's going to face off with like Ramon Sessions and Ron Baker for the majority of the game. This is just an excellent spot for Kyrie to come out and actually have a good game. So he's the guy that I'd be looking at there. And I'm not on Horford, not really on Tatum and Brown. It is a Brown birthday game. So there is that narrative, but their price is just a little too high. I don't mind Baines as a punt center option. He played 13 minutes against Philadelphia, put up 20 fantasy points, had eight rebounds, 10 points, a couple assists. He's kind of that guy. That's what he does. He just racks up points and boards. You could punt with him tonight.
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, as long as he stays out of foul trouble, I'm with that at his price. I'll take that risk, if I'm getting some bigger options. I'm with you. I like Kyrie. I think when you kind of compare him to Lillard tonight, you're splitting hairs a little bit on DK. I'm going to probably take that savings with 800 on FanDuel where it's a little bit different. I mean, I'll have exposure to both, but I'm with you. I think Irving comes in as basically my top option at point guard tonight.
Yeah, same here.
So on the Knicks side, isn't a lot to love. We can start with the front court. I think that's the most appealing spot. Porzingis obviously been crushing here early on. Usage rates obviously was going to be through the roof. We knew that coming into the year, right around 30%. I like him here if you can afford him. I don't think he's a bad option. 9,300 on FanDuel. It's pretty steep price, but I guess he's kind of earned it through the first sample size of games here.
Yeah, he really has. Porzingis is one of the first guys in my lineup as I'm kind of building things around. Depending on which stat site you use, he has anywhere from like a 33 to 35% usage rate. Everyone's usage rate is a little bit different right now, depending where you look, but that's just insane. He's pretty much the only offense this team has. 31 points in his first game, 33 points in his second. He's been really efficient. 61.5% true shooting. Rebound rate is pretty high. Assist rate is pretty high. I absolutely loving the spot. Probably a little bit tougher matchup. I know Horford's kind of lost a step, but he's going to match up with Horford for the majority of this game. He's a little bit a better defender, but if you can stretch Horford outside of the paint, which Porzingis can, I think that's where he really, really struggles. And that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Porzingis here. And I think he may go overlooked because of his price. I mean, it's kind of tough. You don't envision Porzingis being a guy that can really pay off an $8,500 salary based on what he did a lot of last year. But people have to remember this is a new team and he's the guy now. So love Porzingis. Hardaway, you could look there. He's just another guy that's going to try to jack up shots pretty much any time he gets. He's going to try to justify that $71 million contract throughout the season. And maybe Enes Kanter, you could go there as well. Hasn't been great to start the season, although kind of tough matchups. He's averaging about 27 fantasy points. Had 10 and 7 against OKC, 17 and 10 against Detroit. So that's kind of where he showed his upside.
Yeah, I don't mind Kanter. I mean, I think when you're looking at centers tonight, there's obviously a few options you can go with, and I don't think it's a priority to pay up. I know the Voos, matchup is obviously attractive, and people are gonna want to play Davis and want to play Cousins. So I think when you look at Porzingis, like you can save basically 2-3 grand in comparison to those guys. And we'll talk about Cousins and Davis a little bit later, but there could be a chance where those guys are actually kind of even in scoring when all said is done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Hardaway's a guy I don't mind. I think he's going to come around. The shot will fall eventually. Like you said, he's going to chuck up a lot of shots. There's just no one else to really do that in New York. So,
yeah, Ramon Sessions isn't going to carry your team in scoring.
No, he's not. Is that it from that game?
Yeah.
We'll take a look here. Indiana, Minnesota. I like this game quite a bit. Minnesota, they are double-digit favorites, 11 points there. One of the higher totals, though, for Minnesota, 114 at home. Good spot. Kind of a tricky, obviously, rotation to figure out from night to night. I think there's definitely shots to be had. I like Jeff Teague here in this spot. Indiana's been pretty poor against point guards to start the year. And Teague's a guy, I mean, I think when we look at the first two matchups, really tough going up against Utah, going up against San Antonio, where things are going to start to even out for him. I think he's going to become a little bit more part of this offense. And I think Butler's actually the one that I'm having the biggest trouble playing from early on from what I've seen.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that same way. It is we got that revenge game for Jeff Teague. Obviously those are awesome narratives to play on. But he looked really, really, really good in that in the OKC game. Played 39 minutes, put up 41 fantasy points, shot 50% from the floor. The assist numbers were really nice to see. So this is a good spot for Teague. He has a solid usage rate in this offense. I'm pulling it up right now. Where I'm looking at the wrong team. I'm looking at the Pacers here. I was like, well, he's not there. What? Let's see. It's about 18% right now. So I'd like to see that go up a little bit. Butler's about 20%. Yeah, I like the play. He's fairly cheap at 6,200. So if you're looking for a mid-range point guard on DraftKings, I don't hate that option.
It's like far as the other guys. I mean, we're kind of figuring out what to do with Wiggins. He's been very solid, obviously, for the first 3 games this year. Usage rate's been pretty high for him. It's tough to kind of get away from right now. I mean, 26% usage rate. I find that to be. I guess I wasn't expecting it to be that high coming in this year with kind of some of the new additions of Teague and Butler, and I thought he would take a little bit of a back seat, but it's kind of him and Towns running the show a little bit right now.
Yeah, it really is. I may not use Wiggins tonight out of spite after he hit that 38-foot game-winning shot against OKC. We just have really bad luck with guys sinking 38-foot shots against us. But yeah, you kind of have to look at what he's doing in this offense. And I mean, 20 shot attempts against OKC, 19 against Utah, 14 against San Antonio. This dude's jacking up a lot of shots, and he's doing something he didn't do last year, and that's get rebounds. He's got 5, 5, and 7. It's definitely an excellent spot going up against the Pacers. He's actually fairly cheap at 6,900 on DraftKings, 6,900 on FanDuel as well. It's a spot I think he might go overlooked, and I kind of want to get some exposure to him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in kind of comparison to the price guys, like if this usage is going to carry into tonight and into this matchup, which is obviously great for everyone. I'll get my exposure. I think him and McCollum, basically guys that you can use at shooting guard quite a bit of.
Yeah, and the one guy, it's yarn season. It's yarn season for Cat. He's going to he's going to have a huge game. With Miles Turner out, Sabonis is going to start. There's just no way that Sabonis and Thad Young and TJ Leave and Big Al are going to slow Cat down. He opened the season. He's got 3 straight double-doubles. Hasn't flashed a lot of upside quite yet, but this is his huge game. He's going to come out. I'm calling at least 50 fantasy points from Cat. And DraftKings inexplicably lowered his price to 8,600. FanDuel, he's like 10,000. He's 10-1 on FanDuel. There's a huge price difference there, but on DraftKings, I just don't know how you don't plug him in and move on.
Yeah, I'm all about Towns tonight. I think, like you said, I mean, I think he hasn't flashed a ton of upside. You kind of look at what he's gone through. I mean, 27 and 12 isn't very impressive against OKC. It was really good against centers last year. Same with Utah, 20 and 10. Like now he gets a cupcake matchup. Like if that's the floor for him in bad matchups, then we should see
Yeah.
a pretty juicy fantasy game tonight.
Yes,
So.
definitely.
Minnesota doesn't really have any bench role guys that are, capable of putting up a ton of. I mean, Jamal Crawford, I know he's really cheap on FanDuel. If you're going stars and scrubs, I don't hate it. He might get a little extra run if this one does blow out, but with Tibbs there and kind of getting a really core five, you're not going to see a lot of bench guys play, more than 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, not really. If this game does blow out, you'll probably see some run for Nemanja Bjelica, and he's kind of that 3-point sniper that they have. He can score pretty quickly. So if you want to play this game is going to blow out and Minnesota is going to run their second unit out there a little bit, you could look at him. But I'm not trying to target a blowout with some of these bench guys.
No, I'm in agreement. When we look at Indiana side of things, 103 implied total. I think they struggle a little bit tonight. I'm not really on par with using Oladipo or Collison. I can get it in GPPs, especially if you're playing correlation because they're really not that badly priced, especially Collison. Oladipo's up there a little bit, but I don't mind them. People are probably going to go to Sabonis. I'm not loving that either. If he goes off, I'll kind of just eat it. I'll play some other guys.
Yeah, it's tough to figure out where you want to go in this game, especially on the Indiana side. I mean, it's really really tough to ignore the fact that Oladipo is averaging. He's top 20 points in 2 of the first 3 games. He's taking just a massive amount of shots. He has a really high usage rate in this offense. It's kind of tough to ignore that. It is a rough matchup for him though, because they can just slide Jimmy Butler onto him, and Butler is an excellent defender, and Butler could easily shut him down. And if that's the case, then you have to wonder: is it going to be Bogdanovich? Is it going to be Collison? Is it going to be Thad Young that put up the that put up the points in this offense? And with Taj Gibson guarding Thad Young, I'm leaning towards Collison being the guy that's going to have to try to shoulder this load offensively. So Collison would be the way that I really look if I'm trying to force Indiana in my lineups.
I think so. Like, yeah, those are good points because defensively, like when you look at the one-on-one matchups, on a bigger slate, I think we'd be like, just gonna, take some other directions. On a 6-game, essentially a 5-game with Chicago and Cleveland on the board. I think we considered a little bit more. So, like I don't mind Oladipo and GPPs. I think Collison is playable in all formats if you are kind of being, a little bit conservative with paying up in some areas. So I don't mind them. Thad Young was the one I was kind of going back and forth on all morning. I still think there's some potential there. Obviously, it's a guy who decent shooter, but yeah, I don't really love the matchup.
Yeah, I don't really either. And I guess the other 2 guys, if you wanted to look at Corey Joseph, he comes off the bench, but he plays a decent chunk of minutes. They could use him. They could use some offense from that second unit. And then, of course, we know Lance Stevenson is gonna do what Lance Stevenson does and come in and either put up 20 shots or put up 5. So he'd be a GPP guy for me because he does have a lot of upside. And especially if the Timberwolves do run away with this and Stevenson gets that blowout run, he's going to come out and he's just going to be jacking shots right and left.
Yeah, 25% usage rate so far for Stevenson, and the fantasy points really haven't been there yet. But I think you and I talked about Stevenson a few pods ago, where there's definitely going to be games to use him, and he'll break out at some point.
Yeah, they call him born ready. He was born ready for these moments.
Portland, New Orleans, next one here. This one 221, your second highest total on the night. I think a lot of people are going to be sucked into this game just looking at all the star power and all the potential. And I'm kind of hoping it downgrades some of the other guys that we've talked about because people want to force in Cousins and people want to force in Davis and force in Lillard. So like I'm kind of hoping that's the route people go tonight because there's a lot of other good options.
Yeah, I think that is how most people are going to go. They're going to start with either Cousins and Davis and build around that, or they're going to put those 2 in their lineups and build around that. Obviously, you do want to get some exposure to this game, but don't sacrifice looking at the Indiana-Minnesota game and the Brooklyn-Orlando game just to force like everyone from this game into your lineups.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Like we'll start with Cousins and Davis because enormous price tags on both of those guys. To the point where I just had trouble fitting them in with some of the other pieces that I do want exposure to. Cousins 11-4 on FanDuel. DK Cousins is 10-5. I think I'll take some savings there with like Cat and Voos. And on power forward, like I kind of rather go Porzingis over Davis. I think it sounds crazy to some people to say that, but I think when you price in consideration of and the fact that values are kind of drying up, it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, there's a few things to consider in this matchup. Obviously, we know Davis and Cousins are extremely high usage players in this offense. They're elite talents. They can pretty much overcome any bad matchup. But if you look at it on paper, and you actually do some research into the matchup for these guys, and you look at how Portland performed on defense after they made the trade for Nurkic, and when Nurkic was healthy, and when Aminu was healthy next to him, Portland was a really, really good defensive team. We saw this matchup back late last season, shortly after the Boogie trade, and after the Nurkic trade, and Portland held Cousins and Davis in check. If you look at it, they both had about 47 fantasy points. Uh, Portland is an excellent rebounding team, which I think caps out the upside that these two guys have. So obviously in GPPs you can take that shot. I wouldn't say don't play these guys at all. But I think their upside is capped, and I think guys like Vucevic and Porzingis have realistic outcomes that could come close to matching what Boogie and Davis do tonight.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, and I think Aminu is another great piece to that Portland team. He's a guy who not known for his offense, but every now and then pops off. But I think his defense is obviously incredible too. I mean, I think having those guys chase him around is just going to be it's going to be tough. And like you said, the rebounding. I mean, everyone works extremely hard on that Portland team to get rebounds, and we've kind of seen it early on here in the year. So, I'll have exposure a little bit, but it's not going to be really as high as I think what people will go to, just given some of the other options.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind, obviously, we talked about the rebounding. Portland has a 43% offensive rebounding rate. That's 8% higher than the rest of the NBA. They don't foul at all. They're really, really disciplined on defense. They clean out on the defensive glass. Like, I think everything lines up for these guys just to have, 45, 50 fantasy points. And I can get that from other spots. So I will have exposure just a little bit because it's Cousins and it's Davis, but I'm definitely looking other places, which means if we're wanting to attack this game with someone from New Orleans, it's going to have to be like Drew Holiday and Jameer Nelson. Nelson's only 3K. We're going to see him play 24, 25, maybe even closer to 30 minutes in his second game with this team. I think Nelson's the punt option at point guard. And then Drew Holiday finally broke out against the Lakers, put up 35 fantasy points. He's more comfortable playing off the ball, which is why they brought in Jameer Nelson. So I think this is a spot where Holiday could actually put up a good offensive game again.
Yeah, I don't mind Holiday. I think he's a solid play. Not really priced up either. He's playing a ton of minutes, 38, 35, and 38 over the first three games. Obviously shot poorly in the first two matchups. I mean, against Memphis, a little bit tough spot, slow pace. Lakers, obviously, like you said, he broke out finally. The 4 steals did help a little bit. I think that's something to note if he doesn't get that again, because it wasn't a huge offensive game. But, still a fairly high implied total here. I think there's obviously going to be points had, but I think Holiday is kind of one where if you're looking to just kind of get correlation and want to get exposure to this game.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd look really anywhere else. I guess if you wanted to go with like Ian Clark or each one more, you can. If I recall correctly, isn't Ian Clark the Portland killer?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Because obviously playing with the Golden State, the last 2 years, he's had some run.
I guess not. I could have sworn that he had some good games against Portland.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting the minutes. I mean, 24, 27, 21 over the last few games. Scored 14 points in each of the last two.
Yeah, so last season against Portland in 4 games, obviously this was with the Warriors, so you have to take that into consideration. Played 25 minutes, had 33 DraftKings points, 21 minutes, 35 DraftKings points, 11 minutes, 7 DraftKings points, 12 and a half minutes, 8.5 DraftKings points. So he killed Portland in a couple games, stunk against them in a couple games. You could go that route. I don't hate going that route. He does have a pretty high, a pretty involved role in this offense.
And on the Portland side, looking at the backcourt, like I like Lillard tonight. We've kind of expressed our feelings between him and Irving. I like McCollum quite a bit. McCollum's a guy that I'm always extremely impressed when I watch him play. I just think he's such a calm demeanor to his game, like, and he's so fluent. A good spot for him against New Orleans backcourt defense I don't mind targeting. So I like McCollum. I like the Lillard backcourt. I'm not tremendously, going to be looking at like Nurkic or Aminu tonight. Just given the fact that their matchups, I think their role is going to be more defensively involved than offensively.
Yeah, I think I wrote up McCollum as one of my GPP options with different players priced a little bit cheaper, especially from like that Brooklyn Orlando game. He could go overlooked. I really like him. He's one of the guys that I'm kind of forcing in my lineup. We've seen him come out looking really good to start the season. He's shooting like 58% from the floor, 60% from three. We know he's heavily involved in this offense. He has, again, depending on where you look, like a 25 to 27% usage rate in this offense. He had about a 27% usage rate last season. He's a guy that I just really, really like. He's averaging 27 points per game over the first 2 games, which is what we expect out of him. When you look at the offense from Portland, McCollum and Lillard basically carried the team on offense last season. I remember writing them up several times that they were basically accounting for like 35-40% of the team's total scored points last season at a few different times, and that's going to be the same thing this year. They're kind of offensively deficient at a lot of their other positions. So McCollum's a guy that I really like, and then of course Lillard. We know what he is. He's come out and looked really good to start the season as well. He's averaged 27.7 points in 3 games against the Pelicans last season. He scored in double digits in all 16 career appearances against the Pelicans. People want to talk about Drew Holiday's defense. Again, I'm begging for someone to prove that he is a good defender because people just keep on embarrassing him. So, I like Lillard if you can afford him, and McCollum as well.
Yep. Evan Turner, I don't mind if you need a cheap guy. I mean, been pretty consistent for 4,300 on DraftKings. I mean, 25, 26, 25. The minutes are there, even with McCollum back in the lineup, 33, 32 minutes since he's got back. His minutes actually went up from the Phoenix game, but that Phoenix game was obviously the blowout. I don't mind him here. I mean, handles the ball a little bit. He'll get those assists. He's got 13 assists through 3 games. Has put up double-digit real points. A decent spot. You expect Portland to score, a fair amount of points on tonight's slate. Like, I don't really like any of the other options outside the backcourt guys. So I think Turner's more that guy if I'm looking for some value from this game.
Yeah, I don't mind going that route. Obviously, I poo-pooed on Evan Turner in that first game against Phoenix, and I apologize to all you Evan Turner truthers out there. He is proving me wrong. He just looked really, really good so far to start the season. Double-digit points in all 3 games. He's going to get you probably 25, maybe even upside of 30 fantasy points. So at 4,300, you could definitely go there.
Any interest for you in like Aminu or Nurkic at all?
Not really. There's just other spots that I think I'd rather go with. Aminu, man, he had a huge game against Indiana. It's definitely intriguing. He comes out and he just has those games where it's just outlier games where he puts up like 40 fantasy points and goes back to being not good offensively. You could probably punt with him in GPPs. He's like 4,800 on DraftKings, so he's not really cheap enough for me to consider him. And Nurkic, not really. I'd rather have Vucevic and a couple of these other centers that we've talked about.
Yep, I'm with you. Utah, Los Angeles next year, last game of the night. Tough spot, I guess. Both teams pretty decent defensively. I'm not looking at a ton just because I think the price tags are just way too high for their matchups.
Yeah, this is a tough spot because you also have to keep in mind that the Clippers just lost Milos Teodosic, so they're going to start Austin Rivers, and we know what Austin Rivers starting means. It's just a bad situation when Austin Rivers is playing heavy minutes for your team. The only guy that I'd be interested from the Clipper side would be Blake Griffin, and that's in GPPs only because people are going to look at Utah and they're just going to be like, well, I don't want to play anyone against Utah, but he's been outstanding in his first two games. Obviously, great matchups. It's a little bit tougher in this spot, but you could definitely go there. That's probably it from the Clippers side, unless you want to throw Lou Williams off the bench. We know from previous Lou Williams games that he can light up Utah. We saw him do it last year. He had 58 fantasy points against them at one point.
Yeah.
That'd be it from Clippers.
Yeah, I agree. I think Blake Griffin's an interesting GPP play, like you said. I like Lou Williams. The usage off the bench has obviously always been something that's very eye-popping when you're looking at DFS. So I don't mind him. The backcourt I don't really have a lot of interest in going up in these matchups. I think on the Utah side, I mean, Joe Ingles has been great. I don't really love the spot for him. I think the Clippers, obviously, wing defense has been pretty impressive to start the year. I obviously a great shooter. I want to say that this is going to come down just a little bit eventually, but I don't know if I'm really in on Ingles or some of these other guys.
Ingles would be the only guy that I would look at, and that's just because he's fairly cheap in a few spots. I mean, he's shooting 12 of 19 from 3-point range this season. We know he led the NBA in 3-point efficiency last season. He just has a huge role in this offense, and especially with Rodney Hood not likely to play again tonight, and Donovan Mitchell not looking to be the offensive guy that we thought he was going to be. Someone has to score in this offense right now. So far this season, Rubio, Gobert, and Ingles, all three have scored 44 points across their first few games. Favors has scored 43. Gobert not quite as involved in the offense so far this season. I think it's Ingles, and that's probably it for me.
Yeah, Alec Burks needs to get some more minutes. I think he's a guy that he needs to be a 25-minute guy, I think, in this offense.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, he's kind of an offensive spark plug for him right now. He needs to play a few more minutes. It's just kind of hard. He's a little bit buried, even though they don't have a lot of guard depth. They're for some reason playing like Raul Neto and some of these other guys, Donovan Mitchell, a lot of minutes. I don't know. They're just not really playing Burks that much.
No, and I mean, really, the wing like Joe Johnson, Cephalosha, those guys are all just basically kind of cutting into each other. Like this Utah, it's never been really fantasy friendly outside of a couple of times. So like, I don't know why we expected it to change this year.
Yeah, no, not really. One guy that's a little bit interesting, and this is just a complete just total off the walls punt option, is Ekpe Udo. He's played about 50. He's averaging like about 15 minutes per game, 14 minutes per game right now. He's been really good when he gets in there. He scored against Minnesota. He had 14 fantasy points, about 10 fantasy points against the others. But the thing that impresses me is his defense. He's got 3 blocks in 2 games, 1 block in another. Getting to the line a couple times as well. If you want to punt like a 3K guy, I think he could be in a decent spot because he's going to match up against guys like Willie Reed and Bryce Johnson and Sam Decker and Montrezl Harrell on those second units.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Always a good punt.
If you're trying to get some of these boogies, and if you're trying to get Boogie and Davis and some of these really high-priced guys in your lineup, you're going to have to make an uncomfortable decision on one of these 3K players. And it comes down to like Jameer Nelson and Shelvin Mack and Shane Larkin and guys like that. So kind of just have to make the uncomfortable call.
Yeah, if you're going stars and scrubs, we're definitely looking at some scrubs there. We're giving you the scrubs option. We're not skipping over.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good for us. We'll kind of lock in our highest scoring guy of the night. Let's not do any limitations because we're not as high on Cousins or Davis, so I think we can make some other moves.
I am going to go with the birthday boy, Nikola Vucevic.
I need to start going first. I'm gonna take Porzingis here. Monster score out of him.
Also, we're leaving Towns out, huh?
I know. I was gonna go Towns, but we'll just say he finished was probably third.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. It's probably second or third. I think he could flip flop Porzingis and not really have any complaints about that.
Yep. So that's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow. You can head on over to dailyfantasycafe.com, check out our great tools and content, and good luck tonight.
Good luck.